Hi guys, we're going to continue with our bite-sized portions of videos on the technique book and how to apply what we have in the book to the dancing to improve your quality and your understanding, and also to try to bring the book to life in the studio. So this is not just dry memorization. But as I think about the things I want to talk about in these videos, sometimes it is hard to keep it small because everything we talk about leads us to another place where we can really go down into the weeds. So I'm going to try to keep this small discussion on just a few figures. We talked about the figures where we have CBM, where we have CBMP, where we have them together, where we don't have them together. That's a whole different topic. And one of the things we looked at are the places where, let's say, the man has CBM. He may have CBM and CBMP, and the lady doesn't. Or where the lady does and the man doesn't. And this, of course, has to do with who's going to be coming around who's on the outside of the turn, who's preparing the turn, and who's already in the position. In that case, generally what will happen is one person will have CBM to prepare, and the next person moves into the CBM on the next step. So without concrete examples, that may be a bit in the weeds. So go watch my CBM and CBMP talk a little bit before that. The figures that I've chosen today to talk about, not just on the CBM, but primarily on one of the unique things that we do is sometimes put a toe, or we'll say the foot, into a pointing alignment where the body is in a different alignment. And then on the next step, the body will agree with the foot. And then generally what we'll see there is we'll see that the lady will have CBM on the first step. The gentleman will have it on the second step. Sometimes we have that in reverse. So I hope I have not already lost you. We'll look here at the weave from promenade if it's taken from a whisk. So that's one of the first figures we want to look at, that and the wing where we have this same sort of preparation for the man's position. So if we dance the whisk to end facing DC, so we're talking about the man now. So the man's foot and body then are roughly in the same position. When we say facing, that's what we mean. If we now want to dance the weave, then the first step of the man's weave is right foot forward and across in promenade position and CBMP. And we have pointed to center. The body is facing DC. So we're in our whisk, and we're facing DC. So as we commence the weave, we're going to change to an alignment of the foot different from the body. Now what does that do from a practical standpoint? If I move my foot from this position to this position, as you can see in my arm, if my arm were my leg, I'm rotating the femur, I'm rotating my leg bones in order for my foot to point to the proper alignment. Now my lady is dancing along my body and along my right side. So any activity that takes place there through the thighs, she's going to feel. And she's going to feel that to commence her to make her left turn. So that's where we'll see the lady on step one of the weave coming out of the whisk. She has CBM. The man is placing his foot in CBMP. He's stepping forward and across. But we're noticing that the alignment of the foot is different. So if he takes the same alignment, now we're not going to get the preparation and the initiation for the lady's body into the weave. It's a very strange feeling for our students when they have to take a step with essentially what they feel is an internal rotation in the thigh. And many times you'll hear, well, that doesn't feel right. So of course we always say that we feel something different. But if you've never done it right, you don't really know what feeling right should be. But we often will say, that just can't be right. That doesn't feel right. But it's definitely an internal rotation. It is a strange feeling, but it completely affects the action of the lady. So we're going to go ahead then and look at the wing taken after an open telemark. That will be on page 32 of your Ballroom Technique. Now, when I was looking at talking about the wing from the open telemark, that leads us into some other discussion on amounts of turn on telemarks. This would be a telemark that Elizabeth Romaine would call the granddaddy or the papa telemark. It's the big boy, because between steps 2 and 3 we have a half a turn for the man. But we need that if we want to get into a left turning figure from that open telemark. So I'm going to leave that for another time, but you should notice it that the position of step 3 will be different. It would be slightly back. And this opens the door, which will allow the lady to come through. So just a note on that you make sure you realize that your open telemark will have different alignments and different amounts of turn depending on what you're following it with. And that too is sometimes a point of discussion or of confusion. Why is it not always the same? Well, we're preparing to dance different figures and put them in different order, and so of course it affects our preparation and how we would get into those figures. So moving on from there, as we step into the wing, we see again the man stepping right foot forward and across in promenade position and CBMP, and here we have the man pointing to the line of dance, so that leg has to internally rotate. So as he's ending the telemark, he's pointing diagonal wall with the body more towards wall. And we're going to turn that thigh to take that step down the line of dance. What does that do? Once again, rotates the femur, rotates the lower portion of the trunk. Even as we're trying to stay with this part of our body, we're not letting everybody turn. We're not allowing when we say the body to turn, we mean this area, this central area, which is primary to staying with our partner. But we're feeling the base commencing this turn. So that's where the man is moving forward, and he's moving to the left from a promenade position, and the lady will be coming around him. So it does affect the lady, but I want to take an example where the man's action affects the lady in such a way that she will internally rotate her thigh. So we're going to look then at the natural promenade turn in tango. And I did bring this point out in one of my other videos. I'm not sure if we were talking about the CBM or the promenade position. But you'll notice that step 2 for the man is different than your other promenades, where the man isn't stepping right foot forward and across in promenade position and CBMP. The across is eliminated. It simply says right foot forward in promenade position and CBMP. So what happens there with him not dancing across or on that same line? He's beginning to move in this direction. He also has CBM, so he's preparing his body. The woman on her side feels this. She feels that her thigh is moved somewhat, and if she allows this to happen, sometimes in Argentine tango we just talk about essentially bumping the lady's leg into position. It's exactly what we're doing. Our thighs are close to each other, and as we change the direction or the angle of the thigh, it will affect the woman's thigh. Now sometimes our girls are just very well trained that they're going to stay in the same position in promenade, and so they fight it. If they don't understand this, or if they're not taught to also feel and sense and how to react to this action through the man, they'll fight it, and then you have a collision. You have the woman dancing her feet into the track that the man is dancing in. So hopefully, as a lady, I'm going to respond to the position of the man's right leg and the action in his body, and on that second step, my foot in this normal alignment of DC will become line of dance. So the bones in my leg are now aligning with the turn that's coming up. And then my CBM, again, I'm going back to the CBM video, but it all ties together. My CBM then happens on step 3, when my body now agrees with the alignment of step 2, and I face the man in the closed position as I'm stepping between his feet. And so the lady is doing her side and promenade. Normally, she remains at the same alignment, and her feet will be tracking this way. So what happens, because of the man's action on step 2, her thigh is rotated inward, the foot goes down the line of dance. Then on the next step, as we go line of dance, the body agrees. That's where we have our CBM. So my base is reacting to the intention of the man, and the intention of the man is to prepare for the action he wants to do in the right or left turn. So in all of these cases, in the weave from promenade following the whisk, the open telemark to the wing, the natural promenade turn, the gentleman is moving forward with an intention to create a turn from a certain figure. And he needs to place his foot and his leg different from his body and let the body catch up on the next step. Now there are other precedes and follows where we'll maintain the same alignment. We're not going to talk about those today. We'll get a little bit too far into the weeds. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about this in the man stepping backward in preparation, where his foot is moving into another position before the body does. We have so many examples in tango that I think I'll wait and maybe do a video just on the different versions of the outside swivel, because we have outside swivel many methods, 4 methods that we can use: turning left, overturning, and we also have a promenade link at the end of the outside swivel. Let's just talk about one other figure briefly in tango, and that would be the promenade link when it turns to the left, which we call the reverse promenade link. So if you go in the chart to the promenade link, the one that's given is the one where the 2 partners do the same. The one we're looking at is the one that turns left. So in that case, when the man steps forward, he's going to do the same thing. He's going to change the alignment of his foot, which means he must use his thighs. Always doing that from the hip. And as he does that, then this will bring the lady around him to the left. So we talked about this on the closed promenade, where we can dance the closed promenade with the lady doing all the turn, remaining, let's say, diagonal wall, lady turns. We can do one where the man turns in front of the lady to back DC, or we can do one where we're both doing the equal amount. The most popular one, because it looks the flashiest, is where the lady does all the turn, because we can see that sharp action of her head turn. But they're all correct. So likewise in the promenade link, we can dance a promenade link with us doing the same, or we can do the reverse promenade link, and then you will notice that the placement of the man's right foot as he steps into the link is going to have that same feeling of internal rotation. Now I could go into a lot more details, but again, I'm trying to keep these brief and try to make sense of what you're reading here so it's not completely frustrating. I don't understand why this happens, or don't understand why that happens. So look at those examples and see what they have in common and try them out. It takes a good bit of discipline to rotate your thighs and turn your feet into what feels like a bit of an uncomfortable position at first. But it really does work, and it will help you to collect your partner in the end.